Every mouth movement.
Yeah. Oh, man. Hello, welcome to the Pretentious Film Cast. I am Cal.
And I am Cole.
No, you're not.
Oh, golly. Brilliant.
We'll take that one more time.
That's fine. It's our first time doing anything like this.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So, we'll do a little bit of pause.
As long as we leave, obviously.
Hello, and welcome to the Pretentious Film Cast. I am Cole.
And my name is Cal.
And that is the first intro that we've been able to successfully do in about the span of 10 minutes.
Yes, 14th time's the charm.
Yeah, so this is the, I suppose, maiden voyage of the Pretentious Film Cast. This one's topic being the recent Christopher Nolan film Dunkirk, which came out Friday the 21st internationally. So I suppose the topic will be discussing the film that we've both seen at the premiere showing, and then we'll just get into talking about Christopher Nolan in general, career-wise, film-wise, what shampoo products he uses, and that kind of thing.
How he lives with being an immortal god among us here immortals.
How he lives with the fame and prestige of being every millennial boy's fantasy director.
Well, on that note then, Cole, what was your opinion on this film?
On Dunkirk. Well, I suppose we should give some background. We actually saw this film in 70mm. Dunkirk has this special screening option going apparently in like 125 theaters worldwide, where they're doing a 70mm screening. 70mm referring to analog film as opposed to digital film, which has the suppose renowned quality of being of an insanely high like picture quality rate. I think it's something like, I think 70mm is the equivalent of 18K resolution in pixel size.
Yeah. And
obviously, like, televisions nowadays are still boasting that 4K is the biggest thing. So yeah, so I thought the film was good. I thought it was a good film. Maybe we should get into some like background on the actual film itself.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
So why don't you introduce what the film is actually about?
Okay, so Dunkirk is the new Christopher Nolan film, and it is about the 400,000 men who were trapped on Dunkirk beach during World War II.
It's France or Belgium.
It's in the Netherlands, I believe.
It's in the Netherlands?
Yes. Well, we should probably look it up, yeah.
I'm actually going to look that up right now.
It's France, the Netherlands is above it, and Belgium is to the right of it. So I assume it's the beach. It would be... Yeah. We'll look it up now. In fact, you guys can join us for the journey.
Use the quick code Pretentious Filmcast and Dunkirk into Google. Get 10% off.
Ah, there we go.
Your 400,000 men stranded. So Dunkirk Beach is in the north of France.
Right, okay, so it actually is in France.
So it's the real-life World War II event where approximately 400,000 men, Allied soldiers, were stranded on this beach with the German soldiers forcing a perimeter around them. The danger being that they were surrounded in this pocket at which the German Air Force could easily just pick off like soldiers every single day and not have to force the expenditure of tanks or soldiers or anything like that. So they could just basically maintain. They were caught in a rat trap, essentially.
Yeah. The most interesting part about the Dunkirk event, as it was that the 400,000 men were trapped on the beach and they were in danger of being picked off, and yet they didn't surrender and they weren't obliterated. They actually managed to survive, which is...
And it's held as this crowning achievement of... this crowning story of like human like bravery and endurance, and obviously it was instrumental in turning the tide in war, latter parts of it, because I think it was occupied France at that time.
Yes.
So they were currently occupying France, and obviously the next like step after occupying France was to go to Britain.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's kind of the background of the film. So I suppose my opinion was, as I've kind of said, it was a great film. I thought it was a great film. I was looking up some reviews yesterday, and there's always this honeymoon period whenever Christopher Nolan or I noticed superhero movies do this as well.
Yeah.
There's always this honeymoon phase of, as soon as a film comes out, either the critic showing or the premiere, is that it's always 9.1s, 8.5s. It rarely dips below like a 7 on any review site, especially IMDb. IMDb is especially guilty of this.
Yeah.
So I think Dunkirk has a resting score of I actually have it here. At the time of this recording, it has a resting score of 8.9. Yesterday it was 9.1.
Yeah.
Which makes it, well, comparatively, 9.1 would be the highest scoring film on IMDb.
Yeah.
I think the highest is a 9.0.
Is it? Oh.
No, I think it's around the 9.
It's around the 9.
9.2.
But as we know, IMDb and Christopher Nolan tend to go hand in hand.
But yeah, so I thought the film was good. Christopher Nolan is a very, very well-beloved director. And whenever a film comes out, there's always a lot of hype. It always is insanely well. This film is going to do insanely well. I think it's speculated to make $40 million nationally this opening weekend, which is really good.
Oh, just for okay, here.
Yeah. So there's always this honeymoon phase of after a film by him comes out that it's always praised as being the greatest film ever. It happened with Interstellar, happened with
Inception. The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The Dark Knight still has that resting. But we'll get into that later when we actually talk about Christopher Nolan as a director. But I thought the film was good. It's a great war film. It has great acting. It has fantastic cinematography. I think the scale is objectively amazing. I was looking up some stats. So obviously there was 400,000 men on this one beach. But there was only 1,500 extras used in the actual filming of it. So they had managed to stretch out that 1,500 to give the scale of 400,000. That's 500,000 basically. So I thought the film is not, I would not consider Dunkirk Christopher Nolan's best film. I would not consider it his magnum opus. I thought it was a film that was all around compelling. It was all around well done, but I don't think it was his best. And I'll get into some details of why I don't, like particulars of why I don't think it was his greatest thing. But I want to hear your opinion first.
Well, I would kind of be around the same boat as you there. I thought it was a solid, unique take on a war film.
Like when you say unique take,
unique. Well, obviously one of the things I noted at the time was the lack of blood that almost seems to be prevalent in the film.
Yeah.
He almost seems to make it a war film that still has the grittiness of, say Saving Private Ryan, any of those notable ones.
That's the gauge at which war films are
so it retains
to.
It retains the grittiness of that while still not possessing the gore and gruesomeness which a lot of people are very turned off by in films.
You think?
I'd say so.
Because I suppose if you're going into a war film, it's almost...
Yeah.
Again, they kind of go hand in hand.
Exactly.
So it has a PG-13 rating. Yeah, you can do blood with PG-13. You can't do it excessively.
Yeah, which is why I think it's so unique, especially for a war film, to manage to still make it feel gritty without a need for blood.
Saving Private Ryan used their hard R rating.
Yes.
They used every single liberty that they could.
Yes.
That film is...
The opening scene shocked audiences across the world.
Yeah, so...
But so I thought it was a solidly made film, a unique take. Another unique aspect I thought that I quite liked was the way the characters were presented. They weren't presented with backstories. They weren't presented as being cliched heroes. Most of them were imperfect humans who just reacted in order to survive, save for the ship captain and the main pilot. So I just thought that was
Tom Hardy's character.
But I'd be again with you. I wouldn't think it was his best film, but I'd still say it was a very solid made war film.
Yeah. I would agree. So I suppose we should get into some... I suppose we should just talk about some of the actors. So this film has a lot of the Christopher Nolan regulars.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, although Harry Styles which caused a lot of controversy
Yeah.
when this film was announced, when he was casted. He was casted, and it was almost presented as if he was top billed.
Yeah.
He did not have a huge screen presence in this film.
I'd say
And no singing.
no singing. Yeah,
I suspected him to break out into
that was
One Direction
unfortunate.
song.
I was hoping for that kind of a plot twist of how to end the war with song. But yeah, he only really appeared in maybe, I'd say, 5 or 6 scenes in the film overall.
Yeah, they were ensemble scenes with a lot of the other characters.
Yeah.
So there was actually quite a few newcomers to like acting, like first time actors. Tommy, who Fionn Whitehead, he was a first time actor. Harry Styles obviously had not had an acting. I think he did quite well. Actually.
Yes, I think he did well as a side character.
Yeah, he didn't have. I get not each different like individual character didn't have a lot of screen time to really do anything notable. It was more of them all in combination was like really, really good.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Exactly.
They didn't have enough screen time to each be like, oh, that performance was amazing.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so we have obviously Tom Hardy, who played a Spitfire fighter pilot.
Yes.
We had Michael Caine actually. This is the 7th Michael Caine collab that Christopher Nolan has done, and although he's not credited, in an interview, Christopher Nolan said that he plays like a radio announcement. Michael Caine like voices a radio announcement for something like that.
Yeah, he can't keep Michael Caine out of his films.
No, he can't. It's interesting
tried.
that he said he tweeted like yesterday that he finally made a film without Michael Caine, even though he made a film with Michael Caine's voice. I suppose he didn't have it in it, but But yeah, it also has Mark Rylance, who played this. So I suppose we should talk about because there's 3 different parts of the film.
Yeah,
there is land, sea, and air as like designated by the film.
They go with the 3 fronts of a military strategy, which is the mole, which is obviously the beachhead where the land things. The air, which is where Tom Hardy in the Spitfire takes place, trying to keep them safe from the ships, and the sea, which is where the civilian ships are on their way to pick them up, as it were.
We should also mention that this film is non-linear.
Yeah.
Which was confusing initially. I'm not sure if you found this. So when the film opens, it opens on the mole, which was the beach where all the 400,000 soldiers were. So they're sitting there doing their beach party things, playing volleyball, having cool surf dance moves with Elvis. And it shows up number 1, the mole, 1 week.
Yeah.
And I thought, it was 1 week from a certain point.
Yeah.
So a certain point, and this is 1 week after. Then it goes to
the sea.
The sea afterwards, which is 1 day.
1 day.
And then it goes to
air, which is 1 hour.
So I only figured this out halfway through the film, but it was a countdown to when they were all rescued.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that was something that was just poorly presented or I missed, but everyone I've talked to that we saw the film with said the same thing, that they were confused by the time integers that were given.
Yeah. It was definitely confusing at first. I'm assuming he was maybe trying to recreate the feeling from, say, his earlier work like Memento.
Well,
he
does a lot of non-linear stuff.
Yeah. Again, actually, that was one of the more unique ways, I guess, to make a war film, is have it in a non-linear fashion.
Yeah. Again, I think it was a little bit bit confusing. So I'm not sure if it was presented in a different way, that it might have been a little bit more compelling. But I think like just the phrase 1 week was a little bit ambiguous, just to throw out first thing. Yeah. So you have the mole, or like the land segment of it, which has all the soldiers and their commander, played by Kenneth Branagh. So it's Kenneth Branagh and all the soldiers on there trying to figure out how to get ships from Britain over to France, get soldiers onto the ships and get them off without them being bombed to smithereens by the German planes.
Yeah.
Flames. So the flames are flying in the air. Tom Hardy playing one of the flame pilots.
Yes.
Who's trying to pick off the German pilots as they're trying to bomb the ships. Then we have the sea element, which was in the actual event. They commissioned British government commissioned a whole bunch of civilian ships to, in the case of an emergency, their ships would be basically confiscated.
Yeah.
And they would be sent over to Britain to, I suppose, just try and take as many soldiers as they could, and get back to Britain safely.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if the aim was to create so many smaller ships so as to spread out, because obviously it's a big. If you go with a big ship, it's a big target.
Yeah.
And small. I suppose if you make several smaller ships, it's smaller targets overall.
Yeah, I'd say it was more out of necessity. I mean, obviously,
I don't think it wasn't a point made in the film.
Obviously, the beachhead of Dunkirk and Britain are fairly close, but the fact that there was 400,000 men meant that one battleship at risk of being bombed to smithereens wasn't really going to suffice.
Yeah. So, kind of like we mentioned, this film is in 3 parts, and there's a lot of actors in each segment, meaning that they're flitting between each different segment quite rapidly, especially towards the end when they all converge.
Yeah.
It's like every 2 minutes they switch perspective, which is something Christopher Nolan does quite a bit, actually. Especially it's more obvious in like Memento.
Yeah.
When that's like a plot device, and that's how like the film actually works. But even in The Dark Knight, like they're flitting between perspectives quite a bit. But so you have like Fionn Whitehead, Harry Styles, Kenneth Branagh on the beach. They're playing soldiers. You have land. That's the land segment.
Yeah.
You have the sea with his like Mark Rylance.
Yes.
And
his
son.
And a tag-along.
Yeah. So, I suppose Mark Rylance is, he plays this old... I don't think it's directly said, but it's kind of implied that he was a World War I vet.
I think they said that he wasn't in the military, but his brother...
His son.
His son? His older...
son.
Yeah, his son's older brother died 3 weeks into the war, I believe, was what he mentioned, yeah. So obviously you get to see the desperation from him, who just won't give up in trying to save the next few soldiers.
So he's motivated not only to give up his ship to the British government in order to go over to Britain, but he's motivated to such a point where he almost like, I don't know how to say this. He basically turns into a pirate and decides to do his own thing.
Yeah.
But he's still doing the mission, but he's just not under the veil of the British government. So there's a scene where this whole bunch of I presume like officers are going down the docks, and they're telling everyone that we're commissioning your ship. You have an hour to get ready, and then we'll be back. And they basically hurry up the process and leave before they get back. So I'm not sure if that was... I'm not sure if it was actually a real character. I'm pretty sure it was. Because...
You mean, like... How do you mean a real character?
Well, I don't know if that like in that the one boat with Mark Rylance and the 2 boys was an actual...
during the actual...
event.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that... I'm pretty sure it was all biographical. So, yeah. So then we have Air. Yeah. So that was the sea story. So it's... the 3 people on just like a fishing boat, going across the British and French sea to go and rescue soldiers,
answering the civilian call to try to save as many as they can.
And then we have Air, who are
Tom Hardy and there was 2 other pilots, but you only actually see one of them, which is...
I have his name here. His name is Collins, played by Jack Lowden or Loudon. Jack Lowden.
Yeah.
So they play 2 Spitfire pilots in the same unit, and obviously their job is to
cover the units from the air and prevent bombers from, killing the soldiers.
Yeah. So again, they all flit through the 3 different perspectives, and it never really allows for any one actor to dominate.
Yeah.
I still think that although Tom Hardy, who doesn't really have that much screen time.
No, he doesn't. He's probably the most cliched character. I don't mean that in a bad way, but his character, as we learn, is just he is a Spitfire pilot who wants to save the soldiers. That's all we really learn about him. He doesn't have much dialogue. In fact, I think he honestly would probably have under maybe 10 lines of dialogue in the entire film.
I wouldn't be surprised. The film itself is not dialogue heavy.
It honestly, I was thinking about it. It could have been a silent film, if not for the sound effects and it could have been a silent film because most of the motivations and characters we learned.
The screenplay is 76 pages long, so I'm not sure. There's some figure out there where for every minute of a film, you have approximately a page worth of a screenplay.
Yeah.
So this film clocks in at 106 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's an hour and
46 minutes.
46 minutes. So by and large, you would have about 106 pages.
Yeah.
So that's like some 40 pages
that's
cut out. And that's, I would say, purposeful.
Yeah. Again, I think that goes with the theme I was saying, where he tries to make it less about the characters' backstories and more about what they do in the moment.
Yeah. But I thought Tom Hardy was actually pretty good. For some reason, Tom Hardy always seems to get cast a role where there's some junk on his face.
Yeah.
Like in The Dark Knight, he had this stupid mask on his face. In Mad Max, for half of the film, he had that stupid like trowel thing. And this one, he has like a helmet that's twice the size of his head, and he has obviously like the fighter pilot mask. So you get to see his eyebrows and eyes. But fair play to him, because regardless of 66% of his face being covered, I knew what he was thinking when he was emoting. I think it kind of shows the acting talents of Tom Hardy that he's able to convey emotion and like you're able to follow along his thinking process just by seeing his eyebrows and eyes.
And I'd say that's true for most characters as well in this film. Is it definitely seems like more of the emotions are conveyed through physical means than dialogue.
Yeah, because there's not a lot. I think honestly, okay, which character would you think had the most lines?
Had the most lines? Probably the sailor or his son. I would say probably had the most.
in the Lansing, like the civilian sailor, the fisherman guy.
I'd say they had the most lines.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny because Harry Styles, who was a side character, probably had more lines than the main character.
Yeah, there wasn't really a main character. The guy on the actual
the main soldier,
the promotional poster is Tommy. So he's like the first time acting guy.
Yeah, he's supposed to just represent the average soldier. He's not really a hero per se, in the cliched sense of a film.
Yeah,
because I mean, even there's one scene that kind of epitomizes that, where if I'm allowed to talk about the film. Spoilers, am I allowed to say that?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, so
this is going to be a spoiler.
All right,
podcast.
So in the scene, they're accusing one of the other soldiers of being a German spy, and they're going to kick him off the ship, which will get him killed. So Tommy starts to argue, "No, this is wrong. We can't do this." And they say, "Do you want to take his place?" And he turns and he says, "No, I'll live with it, but it's wrong."
Right.
Which is showing, even though he is the main promotional character, as it were, he's still not a hero.
So maybe we should just go through the plot very briefly.
Yes.
So it starts off with the mole, aka the land. Tommy's character is with a whole bunch of troops, and they're just walking through like a small town on the outskirts of the beach.
Yeah.
It's that one scene of the trail with all the flyers.
Yeah. The propaganda posters of "We surround you."
Yeah. So they're walking through the town. His regiment bar him gets shot, and he manages to escape just by the skin of his teeth, basically. Yeah. And then he walks out onto the beach when I think a destroyer, like a med ship, like a big destroyer, is on the pier, and they're evacuating wounded.
Yeah.
So why don't you take it from there?
So they're evacuating the wounded, and that's when he comes across his... I'm going to call him his friend for the moment, who is a man he finds burying...
So he's listed as Gibson, played by... He's a friend. I'm going to butcher his name. Anurin Bernard?
Sure.
Yeah, let's just go with that.
Let's go with that. That works. So he finds Anurin burying a soldier in the dirt and putting on his boots.
Yeah.
And from then on, they kind of stick together for
Basically.
most of the rest of the film. And they kind of get into formation. You get to see the soldiers. They wait on the beach in formation, waiting for either oblivion or rescue.
That's a pretty rough scene.
Yeah.
Is when you first when you first walk onto the beach, and you see all the soldiers lined up, and they just look awful. Props to the direction of all the extras, because I can imagine Christopher Nolan, one of his assistant directors, telling all his extras to be like, look like you want to die. And they all look miserable.
Yeah. And then you get the scene we see in most of the trailers and the promotional material, which is when the bombers first show up the beach, showing you them picking them off from the air. And obviously he ducks down to the ground, and you see that, I think, is it one plane, or was there like 2 or 3 planes?
There's a lot of planes
in the first scene. I think there's only like a couple of planes, and the damage they managed to do is quite
severe.
Yeah.
So then they find this wounded guy, and him and so Tommy and I think the Gibson carry this wounded guy onto the med ship, because I think the process and the thinking is that everyone who is carrying wounded is immediately allowed onto the ship, because they're only evacuating wounded at that time. They're leaving everyone healthy on
another
the beach.
thing. They do things not necessarily to be heroic, but more just to survive, which is understandable.
Yeah, I think if I was in that position, God forbid, I would unfortunately resort to being kind of a coward. I would like to think that I wouldn't, but obviously everyone would like to
we know that we would. So they finally managed to get to the ship in time, and
carrying the wounded guy. It's basically the wounded guy is basically their ticket home at this point.
Except that there is not enough space, so they end up kicking off Gibson and Tommy off of the boat. Yeah. Which is the scene where they then lower themselves down and hide and wait for...
They hide under the pier.
Yeah, to, I assume, sneak onto the next
so
ship.
Then the planes circle back, I think, and they sink the medical ship. Yes, they sink the ship with the wounded. Yeah. At that point, I believe it's already been introduced that the civilian ships have been commissioned from Britain. Yeah. And, I guess we're just going to call him the old guy, because that's what he is. I think he's listed as Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, so Mr. Dawson and his son and the stowaway. So it's this a local kid who knows Mr. Dawson, and when he finds out that they're going to Dunkirk, he kind of in the spur of the moment, and I assume it's kind of like that thing, the whole propaganda of be a hero in the war. Yeah, he wants to be this heroic figure. He wants to do something. Really, he wants to make something of himself in the war, because obviously it seems like he's not old enough to actually be a soldier. So I'm gonna do something in the war. I'm gonna stow away on the ship, and I'm gonna go to Dunkirk and help get all the soldiers. So there's long stretches of the beach. There's long stretches of Tom Hardy and his buddy Collins. So Tom Collins. That's just the collective ship name for them. So Tom Hardy and Collins are flying around in their Spitfires. I think their leader, so they traveled in a pack of 3. Yes. And the leader, which they were under, the third plane goes down. Yeah. So they're basically just hovering around Dunkirk, just trying to pick off as many German bombers
and they're making sure to mark down the fuel that they have, because obviously in a situation like that, if you run out of fuel, you have a reserve which will give you just enough to get back, so they can keep an eye on that. Yeah.
So it's something during one of the during one of the dogfights, Tom Hardy's gauge for his fuel gets broken.
Yeah, so he has to start writing it down.
He's constantly marking, looking at his watch, saying, I have this much fuel, I have... Yeah. And it's interesting, we watched this with a friend of mine who is training to be a pilot, and he said marking, like, counting fuel is pretty difficult in that kind of situation. He says, like, that takes guts and, like nerve to be able to do those hard calculations and, like, continuously monitor stuff under that series of pressure. But yeah, so Tommy and Gibson meet Harry Styles at this point. I think he was on the med ship.
Yeah, Harry Styles was actually on the med ship himself, though, which... because I assume he had been carrying wounded on. Yeah. Because he seems fine.
Yeah.
But the med ship gets blown up then, so Harry Styles finds them, and the two of them dunk their head under the water to make it look as though they had been on the med
Harry
ship.
Styles gets pulled up onto the pier by, I think, one of the two cowards. Well, they're not.
No,
but Tommy and Gibson. So they're cowardly actions, but I don't think they're cowardly people. They're just desperate.
Yeah.
So the two desperate guys pull Harry Styles up onto the pier, and Harry Styles kind of figures out, like, oh, you guys are not on the beach, you're just hiding under the pier. So then they dunk themselves under the water to give the illusion that they were on the ship.
Yeah.
And then they just have to wait.
Yeah.
I suppose that kind of segues into the whole sea thing. So fisherman Mark Ryleigh's character finds Cillian Murphy.
Yeah.
While they're heading to Dunkirk. On the way to Dunkirk, they find this sunken
rowboat, I think it is.
It was something like that. It looked a lot bigger than a rowboat. It's somehow... this is kind of the difficulty with the non-linear presentation of the film, is that sometimes you can't figure out when
things happen
because the week-long period of the people on the beach is squashed into a third of the film, and a 1 hour period is stretched to another third. So there's like a lot of squeezing and stretching.
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit difficult to sometimes figure out.
So we're introduced to Cillian Murphy at not the first point that he appears in this film. Yeah. If that makes sense.
He's later introduced as a character who had been on one of the boats. I was trying to work this out in my head when I first saw him, because I was like, is that Cillian Murphy? Oh, it is. But where on the timeline is he?
Yeah.
So we meet Cillian Murphy. He's like sitting on top of a sunken ship or rowboat. I think he mentions U-boat, but I didn't see any U-boats. Like, actually, I think they got sunk.
They sunk by a U-boat, and he's shell shocked, so he's in a bit of a state. So they bring him onto the ship, and he pretty much just stays completely silent for the next while. He's just shut down. Yeah.
So Cillian Murphy is pretty much a Christopher Nolan regular at this point.
Yes, he's been in most of his films now.
Yeah. So Mark Ryleigh's and the two boys take him onto the ship. They're trying to be as courteous as they can. Mark Ryleigh says, like, oh, he's shell shocked. Just like give him time. He refuses to go under the deck of the fisherman boat because he's just so like wired. Because he needs to, if the ship gets attacked, he needs to jump into the water and escape. He's not going to drown under, like, locked into the underneath of the ship. So at this, so I'm trying to figure out timeline wise where Cillian Murphy was, because there's a scene in which another boat gets sunk by a German bomber, or no, a U-boat.
So what happens is, after the two soldiers dunk their heads under the water to make it seem as though they were on the medic vessel, the captain tells them, "Don't worry, we'll find you guys another boat," and they get into rowboats towards the battleship to get into there.
Yeah, that's it. It was a battleship.
So they get in, and all of them, save for Gibson, go under deck and get themselves some rations.
Yeah, Gibson being the guy who Tommy saw burying a soldier and taking his boots earlier on.
Yes. And so they're under deck, and that's when a torpedo hits the vessel, blowing a hole in it.
And that, I think, is the roughest scene in the entire film, because as soon as the soldiers get onto the battleship, they go underneath the deck and the door gets closed, and as soon as I was like, oh no, I know exactly what's going to happen. And it does. So the U-boat hits the side, and like water just erupts into
almost instantly.
Fills the entire. So they're basically locked in this metal container. Drowning. Obviously, the electricity goes out. It's complete darkness.
The ship starts to turn on its side. You see officers from the actual ship literally just getting blown up as they're trying to get to the door.
The battleship scene, and it's all at night, by the way. So even if you're outside, it's very difficult. It wasn't difficult to see on the film, but would be difficult to see in the actuality of the event. But I think that's just one of my great fears, is being locked in a metal container, not being able to see, drowning. Because it was done so well. It was so tense because you have all these people in this container, and they're trying to like scrabble and swim as fast as they can, unintentionally kicking people.
You can see them basically straggling over one another, just trying to.
Because I think Harry Styles at some point gets like kicked in the face.
He gets conked on the head.
He gets bonked.
And then they sink towards the ground, the ground of the ship. But Gibson manages to make it to the side door, which is now on the top of the ship because it's completely overturned. And he manages to open it up. So Gibson and
Harry Styles. Who's Alex, by the way?
Harry Styles, who plays, who is it? Alex?
Alex,
So Alex and Tommy then just about managed to swim up to the side of the ship.
If I could, like, tangent real quick. It's interesting to note that I was thinking this during the film. The names of the characters are not made clear. It's not that they're not made clear, it's that they're not made a point of. So you never really identify any characters directly. Like, I don't think...
The only name they say, I'd say more than once, is the stowaway on the sailor ship. We've already forgotten his
George
name.
And Peter. George was the stowaway.
Was the stowaway, and then, Peter was the son.
Peter was the son. I think those are the only two names that I can distinctly remember. They always referred to Kenneth Branagh's character as Commander or Lieutenant. I think they mentioned his name once because his name is Commander Bolton, and I had Bolton in my mind for some reason. But they never mention any characters' names directly, or they never mentioned it repetitiously to the point where you associate a name with a character. It's always just... I suppose that's why I have it in my mind just calling them by their actors' names, because it's never made a point of. It's not like you say, oh, it's Batman, or
they make sure you know that these are just supposed to be your average soldiers.
And it's an interesting thing to do, is to kind of not dehumanize, but kind of disassociate names from the soldiers, so it's they're all in the same boat type thing. I'm not sure if it was intentional, but if it was, that would be an interesting theme to see.
It makes it so that you're never certain of which characters are actually going to make it, because you're actually introduced to quite a few soldiers. Whereas, say for something like Saving Private Ryan, which is one of the gold standards for war films,
I'd say it is the gold standard for war films.
You know the closely knitted squad. You know each of them, and then all the other soldiers are more or less just.
Guy 1, guy 2,
soldier 1, soldier 2, dead guy 1, dead guy 2.
So the U-boat sinks the battleship. I think it is at this point at which we are introduced to Cillian Murphy's character. Because Harry Styles, Tommy, and Gibson are all wearing life jackets. And they try to get on board a rowboat. Cillian Murphy being the commander on the rowboat.
It definitely seems that way. And
saying like, oh, we don't have enough room.
You're going to sink the U-boat.
They're shoving people off. So
they throw a rope out to them.
Or one of them sneakily throws a rope out the back of the boat.
So that they can still hold on and survive. So that's the first time Cillian Murphy. That's the first point in the timeline he appears. But obviously he's introduced earlier, which is why it can sometimes get a little bit confusing. So I think it's at this point in the air. So with Tom Hardy and Collins, where
Collins gets shot down.
Yeah.
So Collins, in the midst of a dogfight, gets...
His engine gets damaged.
His engine gets damaged, so he has to do a controlled ditch at the water. So he has to land his plane
because
on the water.
he opts not to jump out.
Yeah.
Or parachute.
I'm not
I
sure.
think it's a shoot.
Yeah.
They don't really make it clear whether it's because he's afraid of the water or what it is.
I think they say something like the water's too choppy or something like
Yeah.
that. It was a very quick passing comment.
Yeah, it's not really made 100% clear, but he opts
Well,
to...
it was one of those things, like, it probably explains it in that passing comment,
Yeah.
but it wasn't made like, oh, I can't do this because of this. It was just, I have to ditch the plane.
So he opts, instead of parachuting out, to try to land the plane in the water.
Yeah.
And I don't think it actually shows the scene, and you just see it from Tom Hardy's perspective with this.
Yeah, so Colin sticks his hands out and waves.
And waves to Tom Hardy, so
cockpit.
Tom Hardy waves back to him.
Yeah.
And,
Tom Hardy does a lot of very repetitious stuff in the film. It's all great, and it's all very tense, but to summarize his character, he's a guy in a plane who shoots other planes.
Yes.
He never really does all that much in the bulk of the screen time that he's in.
Yeah.
Except towards the end, which we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll get to the end later.
So, German U-boat, Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy...
They're on a rowboat.
And
they head back to shore, I believe.
Yeah, so I think they're waiting for another destroyer.
Yeah.
At this point, Commander Bolden, played by Kenneth Branagh, is given the news that they're not going to send any more destroyers.
Yes, because they can't get close
because they
to
can't afford it, essentially. Yes. And he also gets news that Churchill wants 30,000 troops to come back to Britain for what he feels to be the inevitable German invasion.
Yes.
So he wants troops from Dunkirk, well, as many as he can get, essentially, to reinforce Britain, batten down the hatches, because at this point in the war, France is occupied, France is done, and the essential next step is for Germany to invade Britain.
Yeah.
So I think they start building a makeshift pier, because
the tide is going to come in, and obviously when the tide comes in, you need to be on high ground.
Yeah. So I think he also is informed during that period that they've activated the civilian ships. I might have already said this earlier in the podcast, but I don't think so. I think he gets the news that they've activated the civilian ships.
Yeah.
I might be repeating myself.
No, you haven't. And that's the point where he gets the news that it's the civilian ships. But obviously
coming to get them.
Yeah, and he argues that they're not even going to get close to the shore.
Yeah, they're going to get destroyed,
stranded at sea, and then blown up.
He's also wrestling with the fact that Winston only demanded 30,000, meaning that it's alluded to the fact that if he got his 30,000, it's kind of like, well, the rest of you kind of have to do your own thing.
Yeah. Because
we can't expend any more destroyers or ships or planes to come and get you guys. Yeah. I think it's at this point where Harry Styles, Tommy, and Gibson find another group of soldiers who
are on their way to what looks like an abandoned
like a fishing boat,
fishing vessel,
which is outside of the perimeter that they hold.
Yes.
So it's somewhere in occupied Nazi territory. That's another interesting thing. They never mention the word Nazi once in the film. Yeah. Which I'm not sure. Maybe it's because
they quite literally keep the villains completely masked. I don't think. You never see. You see the planes, but that's it. You see the gunfire, but you never actually see a German troop.
Which is a great...
Except for at the end with Tom Hardy. I think that's the only point you actually see
them in person. You never have a face associated with. It's always this kind of ambiguous German enemy.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very interesting way to do it, because it's like this whole concept of they're always surrounding them. We never know when they're going to attack. Yeah. They're basically ghosts.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a great way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
So they find this abandoned fishing boat, which they believe when the tide comes in, they can somehow make functional.
Yes.
And they can try and
get back to...
They're basically going to make a run for it.
Yeah.
So we meet a couple of these different characters, one of which kind of establishes himself as
the leader.
He's this kind of commanding... I would say he's commanding out of desperation. He's very nervous, and he's very... Well, not self-serving, but he's very desperate to get home.
Yes.
So they go into this boat, and it's made apparent in the film that the soldiers on the beach have in their head this false idea that the tide comes in every 3 hours.
Yeah.
While the Navy people know for a fact that it comes in every 6.
Yeah.
So they show up to the boat 3 hours early.
Yeah.
And they wait for 3 hours in vain because...
They think the tide has already started to come in.
Yeah. So they're in the bottom part of this abandoned fishing boat when they start getting shot at. And it's very, very, very tense scene. And I think it's Tommy, puts it together that the Germans on the beach in this kind of brushed area.
Yeah, well, they're unsure for most of it, because they're unsure whether it's their own troops doing target practice, the Germans doing target practice, or whether someone knows that they're in there.
Yeah. So it's a matter of trying to figure out, do we stay in here, keep quiet, or do they know for a fact that they're in here? And do we have to just make a run for it, or something like that? And
that's when one troop makes the terrible, or not even, it's the commander man makes the choice that one of his troops should look through the bullet holes to see who it is, which, after having 3 bullets fired in quick succession...
It's a scene from the trailer when the guy's literally putting his face up to the hole, and he gets shot in the mouth.
Shot in the mouth, so...
Which is horrible.
Which is a pretty nasty scene. So I think the screaming of that guy is what alerts the what is now established to be the Nazis, who begin rapidly firing at the boat on both sides, I believe, because there starts to be bullets from the other side as well. Or was that just bullets going through, maybe?
It might be.
Because that wouldn't really make sense for them
at some point later on in the film, the hull of the ship gets riddled with...
So they start to use their own bodies to try to plug up the holes because the tide starts coming in.
Yeah, they start pressing their hands against the thing, continually getting shot. Interestingly enough, a Dutch sailor comes back for the boat. I think he mentions that he's the owner of it.
Yeah.
So he comes back for the boat, and he says that the tide only comes in every 6 hours, and they have the realization, oh crap, we're stuck in here for 3 hours while Germans are taking pot shots at us from safe... We're basically screwed at this point. So meanwhile, on the boat with Cillian Murphy, Mark Rett, so on the fishing boat,
we get to see more of Cillian Murphy, the effects that the bombings have had on him psychologically. Yes. So the kid George, the stowaway, brings him a cup of tea, and he almost instinctively smacks it out of his hand when he gets close. And he starts to refuse to go below deck. Yeah. And that's when he finds out that they are heading towards Dunkirk, not towards England. Yeah. So he challenges the captain of the ship, or the owner of the ship. What's his name?
Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson, that was it. And he says, turn the ship around. So Mr. Dawson says, okay, let's go. We'll go below deck. We'll plot our course. We'll turn it around. Yeah. So Peter
he's
brings
the son of Mr. Dawson.
The son of Mr. Dawson brings Cillian Murphy below deck to a storage room, and he brings him a cup of tea and leaves him in there. He closes the door, and he kind of lingers on looking at the lock of the door.
Yeah, because he's debating whether this guy is a threat.
Is a danger to them.
Because it's established that he's not stable.
Yes, he's not himself. In fact, I think Mr. Dawson actually states he's not himself at the moment. Yeah. So he doesn't lock the door in the end. He decides to leave it to go get him. Actually, I think that's when he's going to go get him the tea.
Yeah, and he brings back the tea, and
and then he decides to lock the door. Without telling Mr. Dawson or George.
Yeah. So Cillian Murphy knocks on the door, and he starts to rattle it.
Yes.
And like people up on deck, Mr. Dawson and George are like, well, what's going on?
Yeah, why would you lock him in there? Like, you shouldn't do that. So he comes to unlock the door, and they find he's climbed out of the room in desperation to get out of that.
Yeah. So he finds some hatch in the room.
Yes.
And like circles around on the top of the boat back to the what's it called?
I don't know. I mean,
what's the wheel called? I don't want to just call it a wheel.
The stern.
Yeah,
it's just use a random ship. The helm. Yeah.
Is that it?
I don't know. The stern bow ship helm.
The steering wheel.
Yes.
You have a little honk horn on the center of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's great. Anyway, so there's an altercation between Cillian Murphy and Mr. Dawson. He's like, wait, we haven't turned around.
Yeah, you're still going there, and that's when the trailer quote, we have a job to do, lad. You know, we have to do it.
And Cillian Murphy says, if we go there, we'll die.
We'll die. A fight starts to kind of break out a little bit. Cillian Murphy dives at Mr. Dawson.
Well, he dives at the wheel.
He dives at the wheel, yeah, that's it. Peter and George both try to kind of grab him to keep him back because they don't want anything to happen. And that's when a really bad scene breaks out.
Yeah.
It's
really heartbreaking.
In his kind of fury or fluster, he elbows George in the head.
Yeah.
George falls back and hits his head off of something.
Yeah.
We don't quite see. I think it's one of the metal things that was.
Yeah, I think because he elbows him in a way that George, who's standing on the top of the stairs to the below deck, like stumbles back and falls on. I think it was like a pipe.
Yeah.
So like a pipe that's just jutting out from the side of one of the like walls of the ship.
And he is out. He's not even making much noise. He's
making very small whimpers.
Very small whimpers.
It's a really rough scene.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible, and Cillian Murphy, it still hasn't quite hit him yet what he's done, so he's just kind of stayed silent and started to sit back down, and Peter goes to check on George.
Yeah.
And I think that's when the scene switches back to land, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's this whole thing where they're trying to makeshift their own pier. It's become obvious that all of the soldiers on land are not, like, it's not necessary for all of them to be evacuated.
Yeah.
Only a small percentage actually needs to be in Britain for Winston Churchill to be appeased and for the impending invasion to be, well, basically prepared for.
Exactly.
Actually, I'm trying to figure out what happens next.
Yeah, I think this is the scene with Gibson.
Yes.
Where
so in the boat.
Yes.
The fishing boat.
A conflict breaks out where Harry Styles, I think. Well, no, all of them are deciding that one of them will have to leave the ship.
To basically have a distraction.
I think it's to draw fire away.
At this point, the tide is coming in, so water is now starting to come in through the bullet holes.
Yes, so they need someone to go out and they're trying to decide who it is. And that's when Harry Styles accuses Gibson of being a German spy. The fact that he hasn't said anything the entire film, and the fact that he always looks quite nervous, and he didn't go below deck on the ship. So.
And Tom brings up the point that he saw him burying someone and taking his shoes, which he assumed just to be one of his friends or just some soldier that he wanted to make, like a service or a burial for.
So they decide he has to get off, and then the
well they challenge him.
They point a gun at him. They say something,
say something in English.
Tell us you're not German. And it gets really, really tense, and he speaks in a French accent.
Yeah, he says, like, français.
Yes, so you find out he is a French soldier who disguised himself as a British soldier to get off the island.
Yeah, because it's made a point in the film that the priority is British soldiers.
Yes.
It's British ships that are coming into the port. They want to evacuate.
British, they don't even let French injured soldiers onto the medic vessel. It's only for... The English ones.
The English shoulders.
Yes.
So they decide that Gibson is the one who should go up regardless, that they start calling him a coward. There's this whole debate on whether it's ethical. Then they challenge Tommy, saying that if you don't let, the French guy go up, you're gonna be the one who's gonna be volunteering.
Yeah.
And if Gibson doesn't go up and if he doesn't make it that far, then you're gonna be the next one.
Yeah.
To be forced to go up and make a distraction. Yeah. So at this point, the ship's starting to be really come under a lot of gunfire. So water's just starting to pour into
and in the distraction, Gibson grabs Captain Guy's gun, and they all fall back into the water.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I think this is the point when they just decide to start just plugging the holes, or just using their own bodies to make sure no more water gets in.
Yeah.
As the ship lifts off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so it actually becomes buoyant.
Yes.
So it starts to float off, and then it becomes a matter of, we need to plug up all these holes, but we also need to lose weight. So that kind of further enhances the altercation of someone needs to get off the boat because it needs to float. So this is kind of the point in the film where every one of the different storylines come together.
Yeah.
Around this point, because Collins, the Spitfire pilot who was gunned down, lands in the water, and we discover that upon landing he finds that he can't open
the window,
the cockpit window.
Yes.
So he's stuck in a sinking plane, and he's scrambling. He's trying to find anything. He starts breaking it with a
flare gun, I think.
With a flare gun,
he starts to try to break it, but he can't get it closed, so the ship just keeps sinking. And
meanwhile, on the fishing boat, they see the plane going down. George is discovered to be
without eyesight. He's completely gone blind.
Yeah, so he's conscious now.
Yeah, so he's conscious now, but he can't see anything, and it looks bad. It looks like he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And that's when they discover Ace Pilot's ship, I think, isn't it?
Oh, that's the plane that went down.
Yeah.
So they see the plane going down, and Mr. Dawson expresses that he has to find out what happened to the pilot.
Yeah.
He seems really emotional. We later find out in the film that obviously his son was a fighter pilot. We kind of get an allusion to the association that it's very emotional for him.
Yeah.
Which I think is the best acting scene of the film.
Yeah.
I think he has this thing where he says he still could be alive, and it's really heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think Mr. Dawson was definitely one of the highlights in terms of performance of the film.
Yeah, definitely.
So they come across the ship, and we see the pilot as he's completely submerged in the water now, and he's given up. He can't get the window broken, so he's kind of done. And a oar.
It was an oar, or a
stick, or
it's this long. It's kind of like a pike.
Yeah.
So it's this long stick that you, I think, attach to a dock and pull yourself in.
Yeah, like a hook, and so that descends from the heavens to crack open
the window, and
his window, so he manages to get out. Then he gets pulled aboard, and the crew just got one man larger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tom Hardy is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Oblivious to the situation that his buddy almost drowned in his own plane.
Yeah.
And he realizes that he's rapidly running out of fuel.
Yes.
I think it's at this point where he switches to his reserve.
Yeah.
So he is using the fuel used for
getting back
to just stay at Dunkirk and to kill as many, or down as many German planes as he possibly can, I guess. Yeah.
I'm struggling to remember what comes next.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what happened to the troops in the ship, what they actually did.
Oh, I remember. So the people in the ship are now seaworthy. Well, the boat is. It's taking on a lot of water, so the bottom, the lower deck is basically almost submerged.
Yeah.
And people are starting to panic. everyone falls down at some point. I forget.
Yeah, I think that's when they grab when Gibson grabs the gun.
Yeah,
and lifts it up to try to.
So there's a struggle, and it's kind of like that scene in the battleship where everyone's panicking.
Yes.
And everyone decides to go up above deck or try to.
Yes.
So they're trying to escape the boat because the boat is going to sink at this point. There's no hope for the boat being salvageable in the slightest. I believe at some point in the film it's established that there is another destroyer.
They sent one more. I think
Yeah.
it was. They said they sent one more destroyer to pick up as many troops as they can.
And that for the necessity of having the 30,000 for...
Exactly, yeah.
So I think round about this point, it's definitely everyone in the every single different timeline is now running on the same clock.
Yeah.
So Tom Hardy is running on reserve fuel, is trying to take down as many German ships as possible. The battleship, the destroyer, is bombed.
That's when a German bomber shows up. I think it gets damaged by Tom Hardy on its first flyover.
Yeah, so he's tailing this one guy.
Yeah, he's tailing the one guy, and he shoots down his engine, so his ship is damaged, and he veers off course the ship, and everyone starts cheering, and inevitably he just does a full 180-degree turnaround, comes back around and bombs the ship.
The destroyer, which
makes oil start spilling all over the water. The soldiers get covered in oil.
So all the soldiers from the fishing boat, the sunken fishing boat with all the bulls, start scrambling out. They see Mr. Dawson's ship. Yeah. And I think at this point that on land, the civilian boats have started to show up.
They've started. Yeah. I think that was right.
So everyone's cheering, everyone's hurrahing because they're finally being saved. Dozens upon dozens of civilian boats are here to rescue them. And then obviously the destroyer gets completely annihilated, spilling oil all over the water, which inevitably gets ignited in basically the climax of that kind of section of the film.
And it burns many a troop alive. And you see some pretty disturbing shots of soldiers who are underwater below the flames, who have to make a choice. Do I stay here and drown, or do I burn to death?
It's pretty rough. I think during that scene, the commanding, not bully soldier, but the guy who kind of established himself as the kind of bully soldier.
Yeah, the leader of the small group.
Yeah, he's the one who has to kind of debate whether I drown or whether I go up.
So he burns. He decides to burn.
Yeah, he decides to burn, and it's pretty rough. So everyone starts pulling soldiers up onto their civilian boats.
Yes.
Back on the fishing boat with Mr. Dawson, Cillian Murphy decides to join in. Everyone's pulling soldiers up. They're piling them downstairs. And it's that point where Peter says, like, "Oh, be careful. There's like my friend's down there." And one of the soldiers tells him that George died.
Yeah, he's dead. So Cillian Murphy then comes up and says, "Is the boy going to be all right?" It's starting to hit him now. He's coming back around to being himself. He asks, "Is the boy going to be all right? Is he okay?" And Peter, I think he looks at his father and he looks back and he says, "Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll make it."
Yeah.
Which was a kind of a nice touching moment, I guess.
Yeah, it was him trying to not add any more pain onto to
a soldier who has gone through a lot.
Pretty much living hell.
Yeah.
So Tom Hardy is continuously running out of fuel. He manages to injure that one German plane, but obviously it wasn't enough. And I think another plane comes at this point. So Tom Hardy is now running on basically fumes, and I think at one point he's actually his propellers stop working.
Well, that's the point when he switches to reserve. Actually, earlier his propellers stop.
No. But I'm talking about the point where the plane engine stops.
Oh, right, yeah. So he's
gliding.
He's just gliding.
He's just gliding. He's using nothing but the motion that he has and the speed that he has to stay in the air, and which I believe he downs a plane with.
Yes,
he manages to
shoot down another
plane purely based.
Yeah,
without fuel, which is pretty amazing. So Kenneth Branagh, the commander who's still on the pier, says, everyone's.
All right, we're going to get out of here now.
This is
kind of the ending of the thing where everything's wrapping up now. So the soldiers, most of them are now getting onto the civilian ships, and they're heading back to England. Tom Hardy's just kind of gliding over the beach.
Everyone's cheering him on.
Even though they don't seem to realize he's pretty much he's pretty much.
No one noticed that.
No one noticed that he had his engines weren't running at all.
Yeah, because his propeller was basically just
stopped.
Still.
Yeah. And I think that was pretty much it. So yeah, they're loading onto the ships. The soldiers are pretty much saved now for the most part, because the main soldiers, Gibson, Harry Styles, and Tommy all get onto Mr. Dawson's ship.
Yes.
And they head off. And Tom Hardy just sort of slowly descends down onto the beach. His landing gear won't actually come down, so he has to manually try to pump it.
He's like cranking it.
Pump it down. But he manages to just get it down in time. He lands.
And he's captured by...
He's captured, but he burns his ship before he gets captured by the Nazis.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he's kind of one of the only cliched heroes in this.
Like the self-sacrificing.
Yeah, because even at the end, he burns his ship. He makes sure that there's no...
Right.
There's nothing they can use that's left, nothing salvageable.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, Commander Bolton, Kenneth Branagh, is on the pier, and he says he's going to wait and stay because
for
the French French soldiers still have to have boats. They still have to be rescued, so he's going to stay behind. And
for them, yes.
Yeah. There's a weird scene where this one soldier wakes up.
Yeah, that scene, it kind of almost seemed like the end of a comedy or something like that.
He wakes up on the pier and everyone's gone.
And he's like, oh crap, I'm stuck here now myself. But
and then he turns around and Kenneth Branagh's like, hello there, and he gets onto the boat.
Yeah, that was a weird scene. That kind of I got what they were doing, but it felt kind of out of place.
It was weird.
It felt like a spoof scene or something. Like the stereotypical scene of I'm all alone in a library and then his glasses break, kind of.
Yeah, something like that.
And
then the final scene being Harry Styles and Tommy are on a train.
Yes.
Well, they're on the boat and they get back to England.
And they think that they're a complete disgrace, that that they failed in their mission, and everyone hates them.
And they start reading the newspaper. And they look at an immediate article, and it says something like Winston
addresses Dunkirk disaster in House of Commons, I think was the article.
Yeah, and there's a disaster.
And he starts the article saying how Dunkirk was the greatest military disaster they've ever suffered. People start knocking on the window, and they don't want to look them in the eyes.
On the train. So they're
on the train. They start knocking on the window of the train, and they don't want to look them in the eyes. They think they're ashamed, but they read through the article, and they obviously get the slogan for the film, which is every survival is victory.
Yeah.
The people who are knocking the window hand them some
beers
or something.
They crack open a Bud Light at the end of World War II.
Yeah. Greatest product placement.
And I think they start reading out Hitler's. They start reading out Hitler's
Churchill's famous speech of we will fight them on the plains and on the beaches
and big swelling musical score.
I think the only actual proper song from the film, I'm going to say the only proper like a recognizable melody from the thing, because most of it was just the
we'll get into that. But then they read out the speech, and then the last shot, I'm pretty sure, is just Tom Hardy's plane burning.
Yeah,
I think
you see before that. You see in the local paper George's dream came true. He made it in the local paper with his picture, and it says local student becomes Dunkirk hero or something like
he
that.
dies and he becomes local
Yeah.
hero and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah.
He's commemorated for his bravery.
Yes.
And then the film ends. Yeah. So I suppose we'll just talk about pros and cons briefly.
Yeah. All right. Which will we start with?
I'm gonna start with cons.
Okay.
Overall, I thought the film was exceptional. I thought it was a great film. I think my major complaint was how the film was paced. In filming, it's almost kind of not imperative, but there's a kind of a thing where you have moments of intensity and then moments of calm and then moments of intensity. So you have that breathing point at which you can
relieve tension
and collapse and kind of like process stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
In Dunkirk, there is never that scene.
Yeah.
I was waiting because as soon as the film opens right out the gate, with gunfire and death and all that, and I was waiting for a period after about 50 minutes of the film going in. I was waiting for a period where everything stopped and there was some dialogue or some calm or even some establishing shots, but there was never that scene.
Yeah.
And that carried out throughout the entire hour and 45 minutes of the film, is that it was go, go, go constantly. And I felt uncomfortable after about half an hour because I was like, oh, I need a moment of reprieve.
Yeah.
And after I realized that, oh, this is how the movie's going to be, it kind of got not boring, but kind of exhausting.
I see what you mean.
At the end.
I don't mean to compare it to a Transformers film, but it's almost like in Transformers when they have the hour and a half long fight scenes. You kind of just get you get tired out from the constant barrage of
pacing wise. Again, not to compare it because this film is great, but just for purpose of how that has been. That kind of pacing has been implemented and failed completely was like the ending scene of the Hobbit Battle of the Five Armies scene, where you have that entire hour-long battle scene,
where it's just
and
battle after battle.
It is so drawn out, and it's bad thing after bad thing after bad thing. And that for me was kind of not frustrating, but it was something that again made me feel almost exhausted by the end, because it was opening scene, everyone's dead, get on a boat, that gets killed, plane gets shot down, they get on another boat, that gets killed, everyone dies constantly for an hour and 40 minutes.
It did start to get a little bit, and I know it's war. There's not much you should do to spice it up because it's supposed to be a kind of historical one. But it did start to become repetitive, especially in the end. In one of the end scenes, when everyone's kind of reaching the end of the film, they have like almost like an oh crap moment where another plane, you hear it in the distance, and Tom Hardy shoots down. It was at that moment I just thought, if that's another plane going to bomb another ship, I am done. I can't deal with any more. We've had like 4 scenes now of it.
They use several different I want to say plot devices to ramp up tension in the film, and they use it a lot.
Yes.
One of which is, oh, it's another plane.
Yeah.
They hear the plane noise in the distance. The plane noise gets gradually louder and louder and louder, and then something happens. Another one is complete silence, or not complete silence, because I'll talk about that later on. Slow music, and then a bullet gets fired, and it's very loud. They use that a lot as well. I think they use that some like 3 times on the same
It's used
scene.
in the very opening scene.
Yeah. And they use it almost 3 times in the scene where the group of soldiers are in the fishing boat.
I know.
They use that a lot in that scene. So it came to a point where I wasn't mad But because of how those certain plot devices were so repetitiously used, I was like,
which one is it going to be this time?
which one is it going to be? It was never something like... The one that surprised me was the U-boat torpedo. Yeah, because it was something new.
That was something new. I like that. I know it's a weird thing to complain about in a historical war film. Yeah. I wish there was more variety of things, but in terms of a film, having it be a plane bombing a ship, you can only do that so many times.
Sure.
And have you be surprised or shocked by it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was the theater that we were in, but I noticed that the gunshots were very loud. I'm not sure if it was just because of the volume.
I read a couple of articles of people actually saying just how loud the gunshots were ramped up with the sound design.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure I jumped at most gunshots because they were they pierced your ears. It was good.
It was kind of jump scary though, and that's something that people knock horror films for a lot.
I think the difference is it's a jump scare, but it's like a natural one because a gunshot is quite loud, especially when it hits metal. Whereas in a horror film, it tends to be more random.
If you use that 15 times throughout the film, it gets a little stale.
Yeah,
I suppose that's kind of the word of the day when it comes is that obviously that's how the real event was, but it's a movie and you can take artistic liberties.
Yeah.
Meaning that you can use different things or take things and use them in different ways.
Take again, Saving Private Ryan, the gold standard. Excuse my voice break there. The gold standard. There was never a point in that film when things became stale because even though it was based on an actual war, it had more of a defined structure of scene to scene with variety.
Yeah.
Which is why it took us so long to actually summarize the film because it's a lot of the same things happening. So it's difficult to pinpoint when they happen, which one does.
And it's difficult, I think, with the addition of a non-linear plot.
Yeah, that really,
For instance, I found it so difficult to differentiate between the first and second times that a destroyer gets destroyed.
Yes.
Because there's two instances where a destroyer ship gets blown up. One by a torpedo, one by
the bomber.
No, there's 3 times because it's the med ship.
Yeah.
It's then the 2 destroyers.
Yeah.
It's sometimes hard to differentiate which one's which, especially when you're flitting between different times and characters so often.
I'm not sure if I think the Memento style non-linear story really worked for this film. I think I know it's difficult because the 3 parts of the film take place in different time periods.
Yes.
But I think for a war film, it's better to have a more defined structure to it.
Yeah.
In a more linear sense.
Because war films are pretty cut and dry. You have big battles and a lot of people die. It's how characters and different plot devices are incorporated. Like, oh no, it's a tank. How are we going to deal with that situation? Yeah. It's how you use different war elements that kind of set you apart.
Yeah.
And again, it's a great film, but it's one of those things that at the end, I felt like I'd seen a lot of the stuff repeated.
Yeah.
With small variation, albeit, but again, small variation.
Yeah.
So that would be my major criticism of the film. Perhaps if they had, I suppose, in some way, if they had to remedy that, perhaps a more linear storyline or timestamps.
Yeah.
I don't really like timestamps as a whole.
I tend not to be a fan of them because they tend to be used in places in films when they're unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, again, going back to, say, Transformers, when they show you the scene takes place in Washington, D.C. at 3:39 p.m., you don't need to know that time. But in this, it would have worked.
I think it would have worked as well because there was that ticking clock
element. Sound that was almost always playing through the film. Yeah,
that was another thing that I felt got a little old after a while. Mainly because Christopher Nolan has done that a lot.
He uses clocks and elements of time in a lot of his films.
I watched Interstellar last night, and
the soundtrack most of the songs have that ticking.
I think it's Hans Zimmer. He uses a bass line, and he uses a ticking clock element or something that's repetitiously like. Because countdowns are a huge part of Christopher Nolan's plots. Basically, every single film that he's done
has sort of a countdown.
Like you have, whether it's I suppose the most obvious being in Dark Knight Rises, they have a literal countdown to when a nuclear device is going to go off.
You have the countdown in Dark Knight Rises. You have Inception, the time before their car hits the water. In Interstellar, you have the time before they can actually reach.
And time, obviously, being a huge element in that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not something that I knock Dunkirk for, but in the wider scope of Christopher Nolan's filmography, it's something that I hope he can pry himself away from it, or at least take a break, or at least not make it such a key part.
Yeah, because if it had not been for that and the casting choice, which I won't the casting choice was very, very good for the film. If it hadn't been for those two things, it would have been a very... most people wouldn't have known it was a Christopher Nolan film if not for looking at who the actual director was.
Yeah. And I want to... It's just on the topic of the ticking clock sound. I want to get into the soundtrack. Because I was again thinking to myself, I can't think of a moment in the film for more than a minute, 2 minutes, where the soundtrack was not present. Yeah. I would be interested to see how long the original soundtrack is. Because... Again, I can't think of a time where I didn't hear music.
But even then, the soundtrack, unlike something like Interstellar, Inception, Dark Knight, it was very much background noise.
It was, but it still was like...
I liked that. I thought it worked well because a soundtrack tends not to fit into a war movie. The raw sound of gunshots, explosions, screams tends to...
Because sometimes like a big melody can kind of make it cheesy.
It could distract from it, which is strange because the trailer had a very good soundtrack.
Which was not used in the film.
Which was not used at all in the entire film.
That one.
The infamous song,
The ticking clock was there.
The ticking clock,
but not the trailer music. Which is one of the few things I don't think I can remember the last time they've written a song specifically for a trailer.
Yeah. That I haven't used in the actual film.
They haven't, so something exclusively done for the trailer.
Yeah.
But so it was one of those things that I think, in combination with the repetitious nature of certain, like, intensity elements and plot devices in the film, that the fact that there was no moment where there was complete silence or there was just the atmosphere of like the waves on the beach or something, like there was no moment of calm because it was always low rumbling sounds, low frequency bass tones, that kind of thing. It constantly set you on edge, which became a little exhausting. Especially for a movie this long. It's one of those things. I was listening to this interview by Alfred Hitchcock, and obviously he's like the master of intensity and suspense, and he said in one of his films that he criticized himself for, he says, I accidentally didn't relieve tension. Yeah. And he said, and people didn't like it. Yeah. And I'm not comparing this, I'm not saying that it's bad because of it. I'm saying that I don't think, it could have been greater if I feel you had even small moments.
We can also criticize on the complete opposite spectrum, say, there are good horrors that sometimes do relieving tension too much, where they almost cliche it as every jump scare is build up tension, relieve it, and then do the thing. Yeah. On the opposite extreme, there's such a thing as not doing it enough.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like rinse and repeat jump scare silence thing. It's a lack of... I think even one designated moment of calm for each of the three acts would have been enough for me. Yeah. especially during the beginning, because I think it's very important to establish an opening scene, especially for a war film.
Yeah.
Because if you think for war films, usually the opening scene is...
It defines what the movie is going to be.
What the movie is going to be. Is it going to be gritty? Is it going to be like kind of a, not a propaganda film, but is it going to be like heroic?
Yeah.
Kind of like the tale of these great war heroes or that kind of thing. So I think it would have been important to kind of distinguish the opening scene, because it would be interesting to watch it again and to see where, if you had to, you would place markers for like acts 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see, like, if you had to split it in 3 parts, how would you do that?
Yeah.
So
I kind of, now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm starting to think maybe the whole time element in this, where he had the non-linear time, I'm starting to think more and more maybe he just likes doing it because he thinks it really spices up a movie. Because he did it in Inception. That's what's probably most famous, and Memento. Like Inception had the whole time is longer in different dreams.
I mean, like,
but
again,
but also even in Interstellar, like the whole idea that he's in one period and his daughter's aging faster.
Time is a consistent theme across basically all of Christopher Nolan's filmography. Even his earlier works, like Insomnia.
Yeah.
Like there's an element of the days. Because you know what the premise of Insomnia is?
No, I have
so
not seen
basically, it's these 2 detectives go to like Alaska. So Alaska being like the like northern parts of Alaska.
Yeah.
So basically, it's at this period in the summer where, because it's at that polar end of the Earth, the sun does not set, essentially.
Yeah.
So there's this whole element of time is almost
gone. There's an illusion of it being
ambiguous,
gone.
because there's no gauge for whether it's day, night. So that's a big theme in the film. So it's something that I think it's good that he has something that he does, and he does very well.
Yes.
But it would be interesting to see if he had to pry himself away from the time theme.
If he could break away to make something different.
Yeah.
Because it tends to be, from my experience anyway, directors that have tropes, they tend to be known as not the best directors, as it were.
How do you mean? I would disagree.
Well, I'd say if you look at some of the very good directors, you tend not to be able to point to them having tropes across all their movies in the same way as the bad ones, if you get me. Maybe that's just me.
I would be disagreeing with you, because I think, well, there's this whole thing in film theory called an auteur.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a director is the author of their films, meaning that they all have, like, for instance, in like as a novelist, you would see consistencies in their writing styles across all their different works. Like Stephen King, you would see consistencies in his writing style, how he paces stuff, how he themes.
But that's exactly it,
like
though. Like someone like Stephen King can very easily break away from any of his tropes.
Oh, so you're arguing that, like, the
directors that consistently use the same tropes in their films tend to be less diverse.
Oh, well, I mean, I wouldn't say a lack of diversity is the sign of a bad director. No. But I would say that an ability to kind of get out of one's own shoes is the sign of a versatile director. For instance, like Denis Villeneuve, the guy who did like Arrival and Sicario. I mean, he's done like basically almost every genre, bar like rom-com or horror, and it just kind of shows his versatility,
which I'm very doubtful he'll ever touch.
Okay, so back to Dunkirk. I think we should sing some of its praises.
Okay,
a little bit. I think the cinematography is hands down the best part of this film. Yeah,
without a doubt. It's a film that I would rarely advertise paying extra for movie tropes, 3D IMAX things. I think this is kind of a movie that deserves the 70mm showing, or IMAX if you can get it, just because. Oh yeah. Because of the sound design that's in it, because of the scale. Renting it or watching it online isn't going to do justice.
I think it would almost be disappointing and depressing to watch it on like an iPhone. Yeah. When I don't think I'll ever be able to experience the intensity that was given in because we saw it in we saw it in one of the in the cinema that we saw it in. It was like a Dolby. It had a 360 sound scope. It had this massive screen, and obviously 70mm, you can get that ridiculous resolution.
Yeah.
On like a huge
Which
screen.
really caught me off guard at the start. I didn't realize it was going to be that good.
It was interesting that as soon as the film came on, well, let's talk about the cinematography a little bit more, and then we'll get into the whole 70mm thing. I think it's the same cinematographer as Interstellar, which makes sense because from watching it last night, I noticed that there is a lot of, and this might just, now I'm trying to think of Christopher Nolan's other films, but Christopher Nolan has most recently done when he attaches a camera to the side of something, a vehicle. Yeah. They do it in Interstellar multiple times.
They do it in Inception as well. Obviously, the cliffs.
Yeah. So I think that might just be one of his things because they do it in
Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. They have the panning shots panning shots of the city as well.
Well, I'm saying they physically attach it to an actual car.
Oh, you mean for like the right?
Because I'm thinking there's that one famous scene from The Dark Knight where Joker's riding in a police car and he's like whipping his hair back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking that that's like something that he does a lot because some of those Spitfire shots, the plane, were just great.
Yeah.
I was looking up some of the details of the production, and they actually got a physical Spitfire plane to film with.
Well, it's Christopher Nolan. He has a war on CGI, so of course he's going to use a practical Spitfire.
Yeah. So the cinematography is hands down gorgeous.
Yeah, it's one of the best parts of this film.
Some of the shots, like I'm just pinpointing 2 or 3 just in my mind to give an example of how great they are. There's these fantastic shots. I think it was in the destruction of the 3rd battleship, of the 3rd destroyer, where you see the water levels rising, but it's not rising at a horizontal level. It's at like a when
the ship is on its side,
and like it's pretty basic stuff. You just turn the camera, but like
it really adds
great.
It highlights the fact that the ship is completely overturned,
and it takes a great director like Nolan to, I think, it takes something so simplistic, but to make it look great and to be like, oh, we could just do that, and then it looks as great as that, or attach something to the side of something. It's been done quite a bit, but to make it look so good. So praises to the cinematographer, who I have the name of here somewhere. His name Hoyt van Hoytma. So yeah, so same guy as Interstellar, but yeah, fantastic cinematographer. I guess we should talk about just like a little quick tangent on 70mm.
Oh yeah.
Interesting thing. We saw the premiere.
Yes.
So first screening in 70mm, and we got these cool little promotional things where we got a 70mm film stub of 6 frames of the opening film. Yeah. Which, although, I mean, it's a gimmick, but it's a great promotional thing.
It's a great promotional thing to give you a piece so you can actually see the 70mm film itself. It was nicely done.
And I was just messing around with it, and I was taking like magnifying glasses to it just to see comparatively. I mean, obviously 70mm is like 18K in the size of something like, again, 70mm across,
like a small phone screen or something.
Not even like a Nokia phone screen or something like that, and you get that amazing resolution. I think that if you can get the chance, see it in 70mm. I know here it's running for quite a bit, like a week or two. But I'm pretty sure it's a pretty exclusive thing. I think it's going to be packed, and it's going to be sold out fairly quickly. So if you can get the opportunity, I would recommend it.
If not, if at all possible, if you're watching it online or something, try to get maybe headphones or a big screen or something. Just
it's something like this film is done so well, and we'll get into the sound design as well.
I would almost say it's kind of like Mad Max, the newer one.
Yeah.
If you watch it in a cinema with surround sound, or even on like a big TV screen with surround sound, it's a different experience than watching it on a phone.
You get so much more depth to it. You get so much more, especially with regards to the sound, which I think we'll talk about.
We will.
The sound design in this film being absolutely
probably one of my favorite things about this film. I thought sound design was excellent.
The soundtrack it's really good. We've already discussed how it actually plays into the the narrative and pacing of the film, but the sound design is very, very good.
Yeah.
All the gunshots are really visceral.
They ramp up the soundtrack to really give you everything.
Yeah. And I mean, like, especially with the bombs, they used those the bomb sound effects. I think they were called they're whistlers or screamers or anything.
Yeah,
but the ones that make sound when they're traveling towards a target, and like it was so intense whenever a plane was entering,
closing in on.
Yeah, because
the only thing I will say about the sound design is sometimes the sound design was, and it also had to do with the soundtrack being always there, was that it was sometimes there was so much of it became kind of difficult to hear what the actual people were saying. Maybe it was just me, but sometimes, especially in the earlier parts of the film, there was a lot of sounds happening that it kind of got drowned out a little bit. They kind of had to shout them, and even then, you know.
Yeah. And I noticed that this film is not dialogue heavy. I'd say I would, ballparking it, I would say there would be, because I'm trying to compensate, because like I'd say the majority of the film's actual dialogue
came
is
from
in, like,
the captain and
the captain, Mark, Mr. Dawson, and then at the end, Tommy's character when he's reading
the speech,
the newspaper.
Yeah.
But I'd say ballpark 200 lines.
Yeah, I'd be with you there.
It's not word heavy at all. I mean, it doesn't distract you in any way from the film itself, which again puts you into that intensity immediately. They're not coming out of the gate saying like, "Oh, I am this and this, and I need to see my wife." It's literally some random soldier going out into a battlefield and getting shot at. Also, the water sound effects were all great.
Yeah.
They were all really explosive. All the practical effects associated with the water were all fantastic.
Very well done, yeah.
So the sound design was great. If you can see it, try and see it with like the best sound that you can, because it's something that
it's rare that we would recommend paying extra for these kind of things, but this is one of the movies where it's definitely worth paying the extra to see something in this format.
And that's something that I want to talk about, is Christopher Nolan does so well with scale.
Yeah.
It is that in all of his recent films, he's constantly up to the ante in scale. Not so much Inception, but like The Dark Knight Rises, you have that huge fight scene between all the convicts and the police officers. And in this film, again, we had like 1,500 extras to represent 400,000.
Yeah, the panning shots of the beach, you really see the scale of everything.
I mean, he hired actual like destroyer vessels and again, he actually used an actual Spitfire, and it all felt so real.
Yeah,
and very realistic. Like, I think he can if he continues on this track, he could be one of the better directors in terms of scale.
Yeah,
and like mass movement.
Yeah. In terms of scale and practical effects, I think it is a movie that, in those respects, will hold up very, very well.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, perhaps moving on to the acting, we've already mentioned before that the plot doesn't really allow for any one actor to shine. Yeah. There are moments in which actors do very well in, like, Mark Rylance as Mr. Dawson. There's that amazing scene where he's talking about the fighter pilot, but overall it's not, I don't think it's an acting heavy film. I think it's more of a, well, not acting in the individual sense, acting in the group sense. Yeah. And like how every single actor comes together in this.
The acting mainly comes from seeing characters who all want the same thing. Most of them either want to escape or want to rescue the people who want to escape. Yeah. It's seeing them come into conflict with each other. That's kind of where more of the acting shines. But again,
and personal like dilemmas within yourself, whether you have to think of yourself in a purely like survival sense, or you have to think like, oh, we have to like save everyone else on the beach and that kind of thing. Any other points that you want to bring praise to?
Well, on the acting again, besides Mr. Dawson, who I think was a standout, I thought he was fantastic. Most of the other actors just do a solid performance.
I think Tom Hardy. I think just because of his history, I think he's really good at emoting with his eyes and his upper face.
That's the thing. I think he was a good performance. I wouldn't say he's anything special just because his face is completely covered. All we see are his eyes and eyebrows. And while he does
his mouth once,
and while he does a good job of it, again, it's very bare bones.
Yeah,
because even him as a character is quite bare bones in the movie.
Yeah. He's meant
to just represent the troops trying to save the other troops.
Exactly. Yeah. So any other points do you think?
Any other pros I'm trying to think in this film?
I mean, again, the film kind of speaks for itself in terms of its scale and all the rest of it talking about. In that combination, it makes it a great film. I personally would see it multiple times. Maybe like once on a 70mm and once in like just a regular screening.
I might do that. I'm not sure if I would see it again just because of the nature of what this film is, which is a war film, which is almost just trying to not really tell a story so much as just show you how they managed to survive.
It's not a deep film.
Yeah,
it's very face level, and I think it's not meant to be a deep film. I mean, that kind of speaks towards the depth of each individual's characters.
Exactly.
I mean, you don't really get to explore the characters in and of themselves beyond what is directly given to you. He's shell-shocked. He's been in this situation and he's wrestling with X emotion.
Exactly.
Because you're literally giving it to him by face value. Right, yeah. So, if you were to put Dunkirk on a scale of Christopher Nolan films, where do you think you would put it?
Honestly,
if you had to like ballpark it,
if I had to ballpark it,
or even you could even simplify it to the point of like lower 25%, upper 25%.
I was gonna say
50.
I out of all the ones I've seen from Christopher Nolan, I would probably put it in the lower half somewhere.
Interesting. Okay.
Just because I do quite like Christopher Nolan's other work. I'm a huge fan of like Interstellar, Inception, Memento. I love those films. And while this was a good film, it's not a film I really plan on watching again. It's not a film I think I'm going to remember a huge amount of it.
In a couple of years, longevity.
I don't think it's going to be that memorable in terms of plot, characters, anything like that.
Okay.
And simply because of that, I'd probably put it in the lower half.
All right.
What about you?
I think I would stick it somewhere around the middle, purely because the tension that it gave and the exhausting feeling that I got from the lack of relieving that tension, or the lack of breaks.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, the only real relief that you get from the tension that the film, like, ramps up through the entirety of its running time is the end.
Yes.
And that's the only point where you can really just go...
Take a breath, exactly.
And you go, they're safe. It's fine. So I would put it around the middle.
Yeah.
I think he's done far better work.
Yes, I'd be with you there.
What would you say in response to people who say this is his best film?
I would say that is probably, like you said, the honeymoon phase. I've heard a lot of people again do that with superhero films. They say this is one of the best Marvel, is one of the best DC. Well, they don't say that much, but they say this is one of the best Marvel films, and then going forward a couple of months, they start to realize
they start picking
parts. I think in time people will start to relax this film and say, okay, maybe it's not one of his best ones, because in my opinion something like, for example, Interstellar and Memento have a lot more longevity to them in terms of all their aspects. The more pressing question though, of course, is in the IMDb top 250, would you put it first place, second place, or third place? Where would it be?
Well, it's currently resting at 33rd.
Really?
Oh,
It is. That site is something else.
Okay, so I'd put it around a halfway mark. I'd put it upper halfway.
Yeah.
I think he's done far better films, but kind of, it is consistent and apparent that he is still growing as a director.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's amazing to see that someone who's created such brilliant and like signature films as Inception, Interstellar, The Dark Knight is still growing in his field.
Yes.
And I'm going to be I'm very excited to see how he is going to stretch himself in terms of his actual film talents, because I think he has. It's obvious that he has amazing talents with film. He's one of those people who was just born to create movies.
Exactly.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how he develops and creates new things.
Like, that's the thing, is when I say I put in like the upper lower half of his films, I don't necessarily mean that as it's a bad film. I just mean, because he's done better. He's consistently done very good films. Yeah. He really has.
Yeah. I've seen every one of his films bar his first, which is The Following.
The Following.
Yeah. I've seen all of them except for that. So I suppose this is a interesting segue to our second topic, which we'll just talk about for as long as we want, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is just Christopher Nolan in general.
Yeah.
His filmography, him as a director, him as an individual, I suppose, and just like his films. So just to give you some, I suppose, statistics that I have here in front of us, he's done 10 films thus far.
Yes.
6 of which on IMDb rest in the top 50 films of all time. The highest of which is The Dark Knight,
of course,
which currently rests at number 3.
Yeah, under, I think it's The Godfather and Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption at number 1 and The Godfather at number 2. It used to be number 4, so it went.
What did it take the place
Shawshank, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Dark Knight.
Okay, yeah.
And 8 of his films currently rest in the top 115. Batman Begins being number 115.
Yeah, I'm going to assume the 2 that are not in them are the earlier works of his.
They're his first and third film.
So The Following
and Insomnia.
Insomnia, okay.
His second film is Memento, which is 49.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'm just going to list off his films. So you have The Following.
Yeah.
Memento, which is number 49. Insomnia, which is not in the top 250, but currently has a rating of 7.2. Batman Begins at number 115. The Prestige at number 48.
Yeah.
Dark Knight at number 3, obviously. Inception at number 14. Dark Knight Rises at number 64. Interstellar at number 32. And Dunkirk at number 33.
Wow, that is high praise for his films.
Yeah, so he actually has 2 films back to back. He has number 48, 49, 32, and 33.
Yeah.
So none of his films have ever dipped below a 7.2 rating, which is something that lesser directors, for the lack of a better term, have only hoped to achieve
a 7 and above on most.
But I suppose this is kind of a ham-fisted segue into talking about the mythos of Christopher Nolan as a director. His following as a rock star director. I'd say he would be one of the 4 directors that any person, like a layman, would know offhand. Being like Christopher Nolan, like Quentin Tarantino, Steven Spielberg, and like maybe Martin Scorsese. Like that would be
people would know who Martin Scorsese is, but I imagine a lot of them wouldn't know any of his films.
But like they would know him by name just because I think it's just because a funny name and it's unique. Like Quentin Tarantino, like it's an odd name. But I'd say if you threw that name into just a public forum,
a college, perhaps.
Well, every millennial knows who Christopher Nolan is, but if you threw it like into any of the age ranges that he doesn't appeal to, like someone 60 plus, I think they would
probably still know
who he is. So let's dig into that term that I just said, saying every millennial know who he is. He has
developed a reputation.
Especially in millennial generation,
as being
I believe,
the best director to have ever graced us mere mortals.
I was looking at his IMDb page. I think it's most obvious on IMDb. Obviously, 8 of his films being in the top 150 films of all time. And especially, I was just looking at his profile on IMDb, that every single one of his associated articles, or at least in the top 25 that I was looking at in associated articles on him, are lists of top greatest film directors of all time. Now, I would argue that Christopher Nolan is one of the most talented directors working today. I think
Yeah.
very few directors...
Working consistently.
Consistently.
Today, yeah.
I would say very few directors have worked as short as he has
Yeah.
and has worked as well as he has. I mean, his first film was in 1998, and again, in the span of 20 years, he has gone from, like, The Following being, again, like a 7.6 to being some of the most signature films of our generation.
Films that have created tropes that are used in the majority of films nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Cue Inception, for example.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
And Christopher Nolan's impact on the generation of films that we're in currently. You mentioned Inception, so talk about that.
There are obviously dozens of videos and articles out there that have probably described this before, but Inception set the gold standard for... Well, not even the gold standard. It has set the standard for what trailers for action movies do nowadays, which is have a loud, booming sound to show and emphasize the action that is taking place. And that is...
I mean, even films made in the, like, short years after, like World War Z.
Yeah, they all use them. They all, like, even some games, some video games use that in their trailers as well.
But almost every trailer nowadays...
Yeah.
Well, I'd say every second trailer. I don't know. A lot of trailers...
Yeah.
Nowadays use the Blom signature, like, really, like, again, booming, loud noise.
Yeah.
In their trailers. That's just something that he has...
Which is interesting because obviously when I actually first saw the Inception trailer, it just reminded me a lot of War of the Worlds, I believe it is. Or is it War of the Roses? Not?
Like War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise.
The Tom Cruise one. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It reminded me of the tripods in that, obviously. It was one of the big things that really...
he was not the first to do the big booming noise.
Yeah.
But it was...
It was definitely one of the first...
He set the precedent.
Yeah.
For
trailers.
He set the bar. So that's one of the ways that I think if I had to pick one that he's impacted unintentionally negatively.
Yeah. One, I think he to go into one he's definitely done positively. Okay, maybe I'm doing this wrong, but in terms of film, I'd say Dark Knight taking a superhero and revamping him into a gritty, dark version.
Undeniably brought back the superhero genre.
Yes.
Because you went from, like, the 40s and 50s goofy, wacky...
Adam West style
Batman portrayals
to like the cartoony
to like the 80s 90s like campy like Batman films,
exactly,
like bar the Tim Burton ones, which were a little bit dark, but they were still campy, they were still very typical,
they were definitely very comic-y feeling,
to
dark,
Nolan
gritty,
trilogy,
realistic,
which is like it had all these different thematic elements, and it was a very thematic film, but it was still superhero.
Everyone wants to be able to do that.
Oh, of course.
That to be the
and of course, DC is still...
They're still trying to make
a
dark gritty and failing, unfortunately.
Yeah, because he's set the bar, especially for DC, that when you think DC, you think Batman. When you think Batman, you think The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Meaning that they have to fill that shoe... they have to fill that shoe in some way, whether they pull it off or not.
Even with the signature villains like Scarecrow, Joker, every time they make a Batman film, they kind of have to be able to top it or be accused of just failing miserably.
In the same way that Saving Private Ryan is the gold standard for war films, The Dark Knight is basically the gold standard for
darker superhero
films.
Yes.
Particularly DC films. It just seems to be the bar at which
I'd say
DC
I'd say are more susceptible, or not susceptible, or more easier to make into darker films as a way.
Well, I think it's just because they've set Nolan has set the bar for that in that regard. Any other ways that you can feel that he's impacted? One thing that I truly, really do respect for him is his push towards preserving the art of filming with analog film and filming with film reel. I think it's a very noble thing that he wants to preserve something that's truly historic to film. Is something that is scientifically of a higher picture quality, but harder to make, obviously, and more expensive to make. But it's something that's so historic and signature that he has this goal to preserve it. And I think that's a very noble thing.
He definitely has a passion for what he does,
which is great.
Yeah,
and I think, and I hope that catches on.
Yeah,
I really would, because I was looking up some stats that this is the third major modern film to have a 70mm showing.
The other ones being...
Can you guess?
Snow White's Mad Max, is it?
No.
I wouldn't know what they would be, honestly.
The other ones being The Hateful Eight, because they had the Hateful Eight. It was like I forget what it was called, but it was this big like road show.
Yeah,
I think it was called something Road Show. And The Master, by Paul Thomas Anderson.
I did not think The Master was going to be in 70mm.
Oh yeah, but that was a they had a 70mm showings for that. The Hateful Eight being in 100 theaters internationally. And this one being in 125 internationally. So I think that because he's such an influential director, I think that I hope that'll catch on, or at least paint the picture that film is something to be preserved, and something to be, or at least recognized. Well, preserved, something to be preserved.
And actually, on that note, with him preserving things again, obviously a big pro with him is his dedication to practical effect when he can. Like, obviously, we've all seen the Inception. He created the moving hallway. He created most of the actual sets for Interstellar and different things like that.
Interesting thing on Dunkirk, actually, instead of having all these different tanks and warships in the background, instead of using them as CGI, he got cardboard cutouts.
Really?
He commissioned cardboard cutouts for the actual thing. And obviously, if they're like miles away from the camera, it's impossible to distinguish. But it's that level of, well, we could CGI them in for a fraction of the cost, or we could physically
just have them, and not have to worry about anyone spotting it out.
Sure,
I'm trying to think what else. Well, to be honest, actually, because I've already said the Inception trailer, a good thing for trailers is he's obviously not said it, because Alfred Hitchcock definitely did great work when it came to trailers and promotional material, but he's definitely really started to bring back the idea of showing as little as possible in trailers. Dunkirk kind of started to straddle the line a bit, but
Dunkirk was pretty cut and dry.
Because it's a historical one.
Any monkey with a Google account could just type in Dunkirk and find out the entire plot of the film anyway.
But like, take Interstellar, the teaser trailer was just people traveling through Interstellar.
Matthew McConaughey staring at corn.
Yeah, it was that, and the Inception was just the spinning top spinning and the dreams.
So I think we can just talk about his movies a little bit.
Oh, I'd love to.
So you talked about Memento.
Yes, I consider Memento one of my favorite films of all time.
Interesting. Okay.
Genuinely, that is a film I make sure I watch every single year because I adore it. I think it is brilliant.
I think. So like, that would be your favorite?
That would be my favorite Christopher Nolan.
Film. I think my favorite one would be. I saw Interstellar last night, and it reminded me that it's such a great film, but there are some things in it that I just can't stand.
Yeah, like the love.
And towards the end, there's some really cheesy lines.
Yes. Love transcends.
That one it's a little irksome, but I can pass that.
Yeah.
To get that. I obviously adore The Dark Knight.
Yeah. Everyone loves that film.
Everyone loves that. It's a brilliant film. And I actually quite like The Dark Knight Rises more for Tom Hardy's performance.
I wasn't a fan of Dark Knight Rises, as I think I told you before. I found it. It's not even that it's a bad film. I think I was just quite disappointed as well, because even the marketing for that film as well, I found it quite early that he gave, but not him, the marketing team, they gave away a lot of the film.
Yes.
I just didn't like some of the characters in that film, like Talia is her name.
Talia al Ghul,
Talia al Ghul I thought was a bad character. I didn't like the Liam Neeson subplot.
It's interesting that some of the secondary characters in the Nolan verse are often overlooked in the guys. Like, for instance, The Dark Knight. The weakest part of that film is Maggie Gyllenhaal's character. I am really
She's not. No.
It's not something that puts me off the film, but every time I see her, I'm like,
but they did a good job because her death served not to make you upset about her death, but upset about Harvey Dent.
Yeah, she was a plot device, and I just
did they replace her actress actually in the two films or something? Yeah,
they did. Yeah, that was another thing. They kind of pulled a Mummy in the Mummy Returns, where they expected you to just know
who she was.
Yeah, Talia al Ghul. I like that. I like the actress. She's a great.
Oh no, I like the actress. She's in Inception, another Christopher Nolan film, wasn't she? Yeah.
I kind of like the fact that he uses the same actors. Sometimes it's nice to see that he uses new talent like Harry Styles and what's his face, Fionn Whitehead. I also haven't seen any of the two boys. I haven't seen them in anything.
No, I haven't seen them in anything.
I looked them at their IMDb page, and I don't think they have much.
Yeah, in the way of film repertoire.
Yeah. But it's nice to see that he's interested in new talent. But I kind of like that he uses the same people.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that he might know that he does well with those people, and he knows that those people do well with him.
Yeah.
Like Michael Caine, Cillian Murphy, the girl from Dark Knight Rises,
Anne Hathaway,
Tom Hardy, Anne Hathaway, like all these characters.
The most of them are in multiple Christopher Nolan films.
Christian Bale. I mean, Christian Bale's in The Prestige.
Yeah.
I'd say
what other films are there by him then that he's...
I'll read them out. So following Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar, and Dunkirk.
Yeah.
That's them in chronological order of most recent back to his first films.
Yeah.
I love Insomnia. I think that's in my top members of my favorite.
It's in your top 250 IMDb Christopher Nolan films. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it. I watched it again recently, and Robin Williams is fantastic, and he plays the antagonist. Al Pacino is great. It has this fantastic cinematography because there's a lot of fog in the film, and it just is so good. It's so good. I don't know which one would be my favorite though. Interstellar, maybe.
Yeah,
The Dark Knight is also up there.
I think if it was not for Memento, it would be either The Dark Knight or Interstellar. I think those are two of my favorites.
I kind of want to get into the Dark Knight a little bit because I want to talk about the film that made Christopher Nolan famous.
Yeah.
Or
made him
Christopher Nolan that made the Dark Knight famous.
Yeah.
So it's always one of those things, kind of like a chicken and the egg scenario, with like Heath Ledger, I think especially.
Yes.
Whether did Heath Ledger make the Dark Knight, or did the Dark Knight like make Heath Ledger's performance possible?
Yeah.
If that did which impacted who more? And obviously the critical reception of that film being overwhelmingly positive.
Yes.
It again holding 3 on the top 250.
I would say it's a pretty. I could hazard a guess and say there's the majority of millennials would consider that one of their favorite films of all time.
I would be interested to see. I would not be surprised if it was in their top 3.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Which is good. It's a good film. It is a very, very well made film.
Yeah. Do I think that it is number 3 of top 250 films of all time? No.
I agree with you there.
It's one of those things where I was like, whenever I don't like to have that scale, but like greatest film of all time, best film of all time.
I guess it's a better scale if it is just 250 best films as opposed to top, like making a list. Because I could see putting it in. I could definitely see putting it in the top 100, right? In like 100.
Yeah, sure.
But having it in the top 3 is just
because I always like to pin it against like the greatest scale or the greatest like range I can. So for instance, like The Dark Knight is the 3rd greatest film ever to be produced by mankind, and does it still hold up?
Yeah.
I think there's this. Again, we're talking about the mythos of Christopher Nolan. There's this thing where he's kind of infallible at this point. I think he's one of the few directors who could literally do anything he wants at this point. It would be successful. It would be critically acclaimed to a certain extent. And I think people would absolutely adore him for it.
he could have made his own take on 9 Lives, and it would be received as one of the greatest films of all time.
Okay, so here's an interesting, let
me guess, he directed it.
hypothetical for you.
Yeah.
Say Christopher Nolan's making a film. It's marketed amazingly. The trailer looks great. It has a great cast. It does all his, regular... Okay, so it stars Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy plays an ice cream man, and he has to feed ice cream to everyone that he does. But the ice cream, he finds out, is made out of people, so he has to buddy up with his detective pal Michael Caine.
Of course, yeah.
To find out who's been feeding people ice cream.
Yeah. Turns out it's Tom Hardy. Is the ice cream, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
He has a cone in front of his head.
So it's marketed amazingly. Yeah, he has a cone in front of his face.
Yeah, of course he does.
Of course he does. And the film comes out, and it's awful.
Yeah.
You know it's awful. You get the first screening. It's in 70mm.
Oh, yeah. 70mm ice cream.
70mm ice. That's the title of the film. And you sit down in your seat with your popcorn, your soda, your Christopher Nolan mask.
Yeah.
And you're so psyched to see this film. And it's awful. Do you think it would actually be fairly criticized?
I'd say it would be split. I'd say it would be like... I'm going to say it would be kind of like Batman versus Superman. What I mean by that is, instead of the majority of people saying, it's alright, it's not great, it's kind of you'd have half the people say, no, it's fantastic, you didn't understand it, it's incredible, it's so intricate, and the other half would say it's the worst film ever made of all time. You'd get the complete divide, and them talking would just seek to divide them more.
It would be the equivalent of Frothing Apes talking about Frothing Apes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frothing Apes talking about Tom Hardy with a cone in front of his face.
Pretty much. It wouldn't be fairly reviewed, but I mean in the sense of both sides would be too exaggerated in what they think,
Okay.
What about you? Do you think it would be...
I would be somewhat of the same opinion. I think that the people who... not glorify, because I think it is undeniable that Christopher Nolan is one of the best directors to work today.
Yeah.
Is he one of the greatest directors of all time? It is still, I think, left up to...
the individual person to decide.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, although
it depends on what you've seen as well.
Yeah,
that's the thing. If you haven't seen Scorsese and Alfred Hitchcock...
And what you qualify as a great director.
Yeah.
And what he's... what other directors have, Ingmar Bergman and Fritz have, done for film and film history. And it's one of those things where... Yeah, so I think that the people who think that he's the greatest director of all time would see it as another one of his great works, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that would it'd be interesting to see.
Well, see, because it's also kind of like Dunkirk, because me and you both, we both consider it's a good film. It's a very solid, but it's not fantastic. And it's already 33.
Well, it's not brilliant.
It's not one of his best films, but people are already considering it. There's debates about whether it's one of his best ones, and it goes to show that he puts a lot of effort in, but even if it isn't the best film, most people will consider it.
Sure. It would be interesting to see if he made a film that just completely bombed.
If he made a Transformers, if he made a Pixels.
No, not even because Transformers does well box office, and people would take that into consideration.
If he made a Ghostbusters,
it barely broke even.
Yes.
So they lost money on marketing.
I don't think that would happen. I think no matter what, because of the pedigree he has, especially with millennials nowadays, that even if the film was not marketed well, even if everything possibly went wrong, he would still very easily break even. I think just simply because of he stick the name on there.
Yeah. I think half of the marketing that he has to the film is the name of the film.
Oh yeah.
I would say
I think
75%.
Most of his films, the ads have on the top from the creator of X, Y, and Z, and then Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Would it shatter the illusion that he's this infallible pope of the movies?
Yeah.
Would it be one of those things that just polarizes people who love his films?
Yeah.
Would it be kind of like a Batman versus Superman thing? People would start petitioning to take down critical review sites or something like that.
People are never going to start to take down IMDb.
No, would he lose distribution stuff? Would he get less partners? Because he did not partner with Legendary on this. I think it's one of his first films that he hasn't partnered with Legendary. but it'd be interesting to see if that. And it would be interesting to see. That's an interesting hypothetical for like any director.
Yeah.
Especially an up-and-coming good director.
If they do something bad, will people still consider it good?
Sure,
Is obviously one of them.
Or would it have an adverse effect on their pedigree, as you said?
Because like I think it's kind of the reverse would also be a thing. If Michael Bay were to do a film that the marketing was amazing, the film turned out to be amazing, would it be fairly reviewed? No, I don't think so. I think it would be the same thing again. Half the people would say it's incredible, it's fantastic. Half the people would say no, it's Michael Bay, therefore it is. I'd be with that half.
Sure, yeah. Do you think that Christopher Nolan and the degree of films that he has and the critical reception that it has, and people think that he's this brilliant director? Do you think that's like? Would you consider him the director that people would go to watch, in the sense that they don't, it's not a popcorn movie. They think it's an intellectual movie. So I'm not sure how to. I
know what you mean. Yes, well, I mean,
but it's like the layman's.
Because obviously people would always say Inception. It's a very complex film. You know, it's very difficult to follow. Lots of stuff going on. When we really get down to it, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm being I'm superior, but they're not actually that complex. But I definitely could see people saying,
plot-wise,
Interstellar, like people saying, like Interstellar. Yeah, I understood all the science behind Interstellar. When the reality is, they probably watched a Neil deGrasse Tyson video of him narrating it or something.
Christopher Christopher Nelson
Mandela.
Christopher Nolan directing Neil deGrasse Tyson in Dunkirk.
That would be a film. I would watch that film.
Right. Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, does that about wrap it up then?
I think it pretty much wraps it up.
All right.
So thanks very much for listening to the Pretentious Filmcast.
Yeah, we're superior.
We're superior in every way, and don't you forget it, you dirty neck-bearded scrubs. Thanks for listening.
Bye.